Hello everybody, I hope you're staying warm on these cold winter days. It's pretty cold here, it's like 28 degrees and we're in North Carolina and it's supposed to snow, so what better way to stay in and stay warm on a cold night with a warm bowl of soup. Now tonight I'm going to be making minestrone soup. It is a hearty winter soup and I'm going to take you through it. Now I am doubling the recipe and you're going to see a lot more than what you'd normally need, but this freezes beautifully. You just let it cool, put it in one of those gallon bags, lay it flat in your freezer, and it will freeze beautifully. It's amazing. And I think even the taste gets better after it's been in the freezer for a while. So with that in mind, just understand that you can check out the blog at kjaggers.com and you will see the recipe in full for just one pot. I'm going to kind of double it. So what you're going to need is 2 tablespoons of olive oil. My olive oil is by the stove, but make sure you have some olive oil. You're going to need 1 onion chopped. Now I have 2 because I'm also making a double batch, but these are small onions. I could actually use 3, but since people aren't that crazy about onions in my house, those 2 will be plenty. You're going to need some celery. It calls for 2 stalks. I'm going to be using 3. It also calls for 3 ounces of thinly sliced pancetta. I cannot find pancetta in my grocery store today. They didn't have it in the deli. They didn't have it in the meats. So I got tired of looking and I just got some bacon. Bacon will work too, and it is a cheaper alternative. You're also going to need some garlic. So I got a garlic head over there. You're going to need 1 pound of Swiss chard. Right now in my store I couldn't find that either, so I'm going with the spinach, which will work just fine. For 1 pot, you're going to need 1 russet potato. I'm using 2. You're going to need 1 can of 14.5 ounces of diced tomatoes. I'm using 2, but 1 is for a regular pot. You're also going to need 1 rosemary sprig, and I just grabbed that out of the garden. And yes, rosemary does grow in the winter. It smells really good. You're going to need 1 15-ounce can of cannellini beans, and here they are. Now, even though I'm making a double batch, I'm not a huge fan of cannellini beans, or any kind of bean for that matter. 1 can is more than enough for even a double pot. You're going to need 2 cans of the beef broth, and I am using 4 because I like a lot of broth in the soup. You're going to need 1 Parmesan cheese rind, but I used mine, and I'm just using some Parmesan cheese I had in the fridge. And it does call for salt and pepper and some parsley leaves. I'm going to be using dried because my garden really only has rosemary growing in it right now because it's winter. I'm going to be serving it up with some crusty bread. And this is going to be like a double meal. Oh, and also this particular recipe does not call for pasta, but I like some medium-sized shell pasta in my soup, and I'm going to be using some of that. So if you want to see how to make this, all you have to do is stay tuned, and we'll get started. Okay, here is the first step of making the soup. Now, before I tell you everything about it, let me explain that in your kitchen, you should have a really good knife. This is my Cook's Essentials. This is a 5.5, I can't even say it, Casamoko knife. I also have this very handy-dandy knife sharpener that I've had for a very long time. And if you don't have a good knife, it's going to feel like a lot of work, especially when you have this much chopping to do. So make sure you have a really good knife. It's Christmas time, and if you need one, ask for one. And maybe Santa will bring it. Alright, the first thing that's going on is that I have the oil heating up on the stove, and I just turned it on right before I started this video. But before, I chopped up my celery, I peeled and diced up my potato, I peeled some carrots and diced them up, I've got the onion diced up, and I've also got the bacon diced up. The first thing I'm going to do is add the onion, the celery, the carrots, and the bacon. And for the garlic, I just peeled it, and I'm going to be using my handy-dandy garlic press, but you could just mince it up just like you would any other minced food. All you have to do is take your knife through it a few times. But I'm going to use the garlic press because I have it and it's handy. So that is the first step. Chop up your carrots, chop up your onions, chop up your celery, peel and chop up your potato, and chop up your pancetta or bacon. I actually am using a little extra bacon because my family absolutely loves bacon. So that is the first steps. Okay, so I have the bacon or pancetta, whichever you prefer, the carrots, the celery, the onion, and the garlic. Now you're going to cook this for about 10 minutes until the onions are translucent. And I think it already looks beautiful. This is pretty much what you'd always use to start a soup. It's the carrots, the onions, the celery, the garlic. The bacon is kind of optional. But we're going to let this cook for about 10 minutes. Keep stirring it. Okay, I pulled it off the stove for just a second off the heat, just so I could show you without it steaming up the camera too much. This is cooked for about 10 minutes. Again, it's the onions, the celery, the bacon or pancetta, and the carrots. Next up, I'm putting it right back on the stove, is adding the potatoes. So I'm just using my handy tool here, my bench scraper, to load up the potatoes. Now I'm doing this one-handed, so bear with me. And the potatoes go straight in. Okay, all the potatoes are in now, and the potatoes are going to kind of make it a little more hearty, and it's also going to thicken up the soup with the starch. And then you're going to take either your Swiss chard, or in this case I'm using spinach, and you're going to dump that straight down into your big soup pot. This will cook down. Don't be scared that it's so full. It will only take a couple seconds to cook down. About 2 minutes. So give it a good stir. Okay, now this has been about 1 minute actually on the spinach. See how quick it cooks down? You just want it to cook down. Give it about 2 minutes. Just keep stirring it. Don't be scared of fresh spinach or Swiss chard. It really does taste good in soups. And again, I'm using a big stock pot because this is one of my favorite stock pots. But it depends on how much you're making. If you're making just the normal recipe, you should not need something so big. But like I said, I want to freeze it and or have it again for dinner in a couple nights. So I want as much room in the pot as I can get. Now, okay. Okay, now we're going to add our diced tomatoes. It would normally be just 1 can. I'm using 2. Again, like I said, I'm doubling the recipe. And you're going to want to add your sprig of rosemary. So I had a big sprig, but I cut it in half, and I'm just dropping that in. Stir it up well. And let the tomatoes cook down. It's going to take about 10 minutes. Okay, now it's been simmering for about 10 minutes. The tomatoes have cooked down quite a bit. It looks really good. And let me tell you, this smells amazing. It's making my kitchen smell so good. Okay, here's the easy part. Now, all I did was take the cannellini beans, rinse them, and drain them and rinse them. They're going in. Again, 1 cup is enough for me. And now we're just going to take the chicken broth, or the beef broth, I'm sorry, and start adding it. I am adding 4 cans. You could use your homemade beef broth if you have some, but nothing is quite as quick as using a store-bought chicken broth. Now you're going to mix it up. Oh my gosh, this is going to be amazing dinner tonight. Look at that. You're going to want to salt and pepper it. Just kind of taste it. Go by taste. And next up, there's only one more step. I'm going to let this cook for a little while on low. And when it's about done, I'm going to cook these medium shells in medium al dente, kind of, a little bit hard, because I'm going to put them into the pot. Now, you could try to cook your shells in with the soup, but I don't want to boil the soup because you'll break up the beans, and you just don't need to boil it. It'll just break everything down a lot harder. So I'm going to do the shells in a separate pot and then transfer them over after they're done. Okay, the soup is finished. Now, I did something that I said I wasn't going to do. well, two things actually. I did just dump the shells right into the pot. I just said screw it, and I didn't really want to dirty two pots. So and it worked out perfect. I did bring it to a low boil, and I also used the entire box. There's only like 2 in there. But as you can see, this is a big pot of soup. So again, you know, I just went for it. I didn't care. Being that I used more pasta, I added a little bit more beef broth to make it a little more rich. It smells amazing. Look at that. This is like a garden in a bowl. It's delicious. I've already had some, so when I plate this up, or I guess bowl it up, I'll show you how I serve it. And you can see I did put a little Parmesan cheese in it. You can see, well, the strings of cheese, but not much. The rest of the Parmesan will go right on top when it's done. This is an amazing soup. I mean, it's seriously one of the best soups I've ever ate in my life. It smells amazing. It tastes amazing. It's rich. It's got all kinds of vegetables. It's got carrots. It's got potato. It's got onions. It's got celery, spinach, tomato, garlic, bacon, even though I wish it was pancetta, and pasta. It has beef broth. What else? And some rosemary, salt and pepper. I'm trying to think if I'm forgetting anything. And pasta. So, you know, this is a beautiful meal to make. This would serve an army, and I do plan on freezing some for a different cold night. But let it simmer. The longer it simmers, the more rich the taste is going to be. Right now it is 6 o'clock here, and we're not going to be eating till about 7, even though I already had a bowl. So I'm going to let it simmer for about an hour, and then I'll serve it up about 7 o'clock. Stay tuned if you want to see what it looks like in the bowl. And here is the bowl of soup, the homemade minestrone soup. It is delicious, let me tell you. It is amazing. It's like a garden in a bowl, pretty much. You've got tomato, carrots, onions, potatoes, celery, cannellini beans, pasta, just these medium-sized shells. You got spinach, chicken broth, beef broth. It's just amazing. And I serve it with a crusty piece of bread that's been warming in the oven. And honestly, I would just pick it up and just go right for it right there. Amazing dinner. Perfect for the winter or fall. It's a hearty Italian soup. And it's worth every bite. I mean, it's delicious. I've already had 2 bowls. So if you make it, send me a picture. Let me know how it turned out. Have a great week and stay warm. If you liked the video, take a second to subscribe and check out the blog at KJaggers for the full recipe. Bye-bye.